I am your plenary moderator. My name is Femi Oke. It is my joy and pleasure to guide you through today and tomorrow of all of the big plenary conversations. This is the 23rd edition of TT. So quick pop quiz. If there was a TT every year, this is the 23rd edition. What year did it start? Do we have any answers? If you work for TT, you can't answer this. What year did it start? 23 years ago? Subtraction? At the World Bank? Should be a good skill. What year did it start?
2003.
All right. Phew, I was scared there for a moment. So many economists, but can't subtract. 23 years, and how we've seen transportation change over those 23 years has been remarkable. You will have an app, if you haven't used your app yet, you'll see the little QR codes here on the side of the room to use the See Event app, because it will tell you who the plenary speakers are, who the fireside chats are with, show you a little bit of their bios, work out where you should be at what time, so do use that app. And we also have a hashtag, and this is especially for our viewers who are watching online. It is TTDC26 for your feedback, your questions that we will wrap into our conversations here on the stage. Now, the welcome address has to be done by two brilliant, eloquent, genius people. Nicolas Peltier Thiberge, World Bank Group Transport and Logistics Senior Advisor, please come to the stage. And also Ani Dasgupta, President and CEO of the World Resources Institute, please join us as well. It's good to have you both. You can decide who goes first. I feel that Nicolas has decided already. All right. Man of action and speedy walking. Nicolas, over to you. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Femi, and welcome to this 23rd edition of Transforming Transportation. This is one of the highlights of the year for all of those of us working in the transport sector, and it's great to see so many familiar faces in the room today, as well as new ones. It's a pleasure to open this year's edition with our longtime partners and friends from the World Resources Institute. Let me also extend the greetings of Valérie Levkov, our World Bank Group Vice President for Infrastructure, who unfortunately could not be with us today. So this year's theme is Powering Jobs and Growth. And I would like to highlight three priorities to inspire this week's discussions: jobs, private investment, and the role of knowledge. So let me start with jobs. Jobs are the most reliable path out of poverty. Jobs are created when people gain mobility, when farmers reach markets, and when businesses can move goods quickly and reliably. Transport makes this possible both as a job creator and as a job connector. As a job creator, the transport sector supports nearly 200 million jobs: pilots, engineers, truck drivers, maritime workers, and many others. But transport's biggest impact is perhaps as a job connector. It links people to opportunity across every sector of the economy. Yet access remains limited. About half of the world's population still lacks access to sustainable transport. In many developing cities, less than half of all jobs can be reached within an hour of commute. This matters even more today. Over the next 10 to 15 years, 1.2 billion young people in developing countries will reach working age. Transport must help them connect to opportunity. We take this seriously. When the projects financed by the World Bank Group in the transportation sector are complete, we will have improved access to sustainable transport for 435 million people. This means nearly 500 million people will have better access to jobs, to services, and to markets. But much more needs to be done, and this brings me to my second point: private investment. Building resilient transport systems in developing countries requires about $417 billion every year through 2030. Public budgets alone cannot meet these needs, so private capital must play a larger role. We see this with the Bogota Metro. In addition to support from the World Bank Group and the European Investment Bank, this project also crowded in $670 million in private capital. The payoff for the city are significant. During constructions, this project will employ over 100,000 workers, with 1,500 jobs remaining permanently. And the line will carry over 1 million passengers a day, cutting travel times from 90 minutes to just around 20. And we have similar stories from other regions of the world, like the Dakar BRT, which received the prestigious Sustainable Transport Award last year here at Transforming Transportation, and mobilized $144 million of private capital for electric buses. My third point is about knowledge. The World Bank Group's greatest asset is not only our capital, it's our experience. For more than 80 years, we've worked with countries and other development partners to solve complex development challenges. Through our new knowledge bank, we bring together expertise from all parts of the World Bank Group into one system. This helps us turn experience into practical solutions so that we can scale and replicate what works. A good example is our work on strategy corridors. These corridors connect countries, markets, and supply chains, but many still face bottlenecks that slow trade and raise costs. Today, we're helping countries design new generation corridors. These combine infrastructure, policy reform, institutional coordination, and private investment. One example is the Lobito corridor, which links Angola, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Zambia. This region is home to more than 23 million people and many businesses that can benefit from stronger regional trade. At the World Bank Group, we are eager to work with all our partners to involve connectivity across strategic corridors. Through investments, guarantees, and advisory services, our ultimate goal is to transform transport corridors into development corridors, to strengthen trade, support new industries, and create jobs. So let me close with a simple message. When transport works, economies grow, and when economies grow, jobs follow. Transforming transportation is an opportunity for all of us to focus on solutions that create jobs. This requires bringing more private capital into the transport sector, but also new ideas through our collective knowledge. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Ani Dasgupta, in case you've forgotten, since Femi introduced us. I had the wonderful team at WRI, and we are very, very happy to see all of you here. And especially this year, to be honest with you, we were worried if people will show up. This is a kind of a weird moment in the world. Actually, it's been a weird year. And I live in DC, so I feel it every minute. So it's actually super wonderful to see so many of you. I've been hearing that we have had the most registration this year, that your commitment to this topic, commitment to this community. I just want to thank you from WRI, our partners at World Bank, with whom we're working for 23 years, and also FIA Foundation, our big supporter of ours. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see everyone here. I just want to it is a very turbulent time in the world. And if you look at newspaper, all kinds of things going on, conflict, multilateralism, trade problems, not to talk about climate-related disasters. And so it is an uncertain moment. If you look at the stock market, for example. But what you don't see in the headlines is actually some amazing things are actually going on in the world, especially if you look at the whole world. And I just wanted to focus attention to this. Actually, for the first time, I think, after many years, transport is in the headlines for good reasons. There are good things happening in transport. I've been here as part of WRI in this conference for maybe 12 times now, and many times before when I was at the World Bank. And I think I've come up and talked about, and not me, a lot of you have talked about, how transport is lagging behind energy and other sectors in this transition. But I think something very significant is changing in transport. Last year, for example, 25% of all vehicles, automobiles sold were electric for the first time. This is the reason I say this. This number, 25%, is actually much faster than any other projection done even 3 years back. And electrification is happening at a speed and scale that we didn't actually predict. Battery prices, which is one of the big barriers for electrification, cost of electrification of vehicles, actually is 10 times lower in the last 3 years. One of the biggest Chinese battery manufacturers just announced it'll be 10 times cheaper in the next year. This is the momentum we find ourselves suddenly in our work in transport. But I just want to say that just electrification is just part of the story. All of you know electrification is just part of the transport story. It's not the whole story. The whole story is about policy, about changing our practice, about changing our modes. And that is also happening. In Ethiopia, for example, as you know, last year, they actually saw, I hope there are people from Ethiopia here. There you go. And maybe you should be talking about this. I hope you do. They actually stopped importing internal combustion engine vehicles. It's amazing. The first country in the world, right? This record, clap for him at least. Think about that. And since then, think about the implication of that policy. Since then, actually, electric mobility sales have skyrocketed. There are issues that they need Ethiopians to figure out, but think about the why. I mean, Ethiopia doesn't have fossil fuel. For them, it makes much better sense to invest in clean electricity than in fossil fuels. India, for example, is racing ahead in electrification, but not just for electrifying transport, but seeing as you just heard, as an economic development strategy. Supply chains are developing, new businesses are developing, jobs are being created across supply chains. And most importantly, more exciting for us at WRI, that the jobs are being created in this sector for the first time where women are involved. There are all the supply chains and production that is actually supplying parts to other parts of the world. Much higher percentage of women. Ola actually has a women-only factory in India. So these are the changes that are taking place that I think are actually very significant that is going on. And I want to repeat, I don't think electrification or supplying or business development to electrification only thing. We need to change the mobility as a sector, how we move, how we actually connect clean transportation across from walking, biking, public transportation. There's a great example in Beijing. We actually started working with Beijing in 2019, I think, with the simple idea is, can you create a platform so it's easier for people to use cleaner transportation, mobility as a service kind of a product, which is the digital platform. Last year, 30 million people used that, 30. That is bigger than the population of Beijing right now. That reduced carbon footprint of the city is equal to removing 500,000 cars every year. But carbon is not, it's actually allowed people to get to where they need to go, get to their jobs faster. I could go on with these examples. I just think our newspaper headlines kind of distracts us from all the things that's going on. That's not good, but actually phenomenal things are happening in transportation across the world. And there's real momentum for a change on this sector, a kind of a leading sector to bring the transition forward faster. And in that is what I think we should be focusing on. And this year, the first year, the United Nations decade for transport. So the question is, what are we going to do in this 10 years? What are the policies that we're going to push forward? What are the things that we learn across countries? What kind of knowledge we can bring faster across? That is the question for professionals like us. And not only the UN decade for transportation, it's the outcome that I just described. That's what we need to see in every country. If you remember, Minister Juan Carlos Munoz was here, the Minister of Chile. He was here last year and the year before. He actually, at a COP this year, initiated 11 countries, Chile led it, 11 countries came together to first time put together a transport sector, a cross-sector goal for transport. I hope many other countries join. We have had sub-sectoral goal, electrification of vehicles, and we have never had cross-sectoral transportation goal to both sustainable transport, including public transport, walking, biking, electrification. And that is the kind of thing we need to be doing. So my plea to you is this for the next 2 days. I don't think we have the luxury to get distracted by newspaper headlines. There are amazing things are happening in the world, but not enough. Our job is to see how we have a choice. We can be distracted, or we need to focus on the good things that's happening in the world. How do we learn from it fast? How can we make sure other people learn from it? And how we take this momentum and see that we can actually spread this knowledge, spread this practice across the world. I think that is what these 2 days should be about. I hope it is about. I really want to, bottom of my heart, want to welcome you for being here. And I hope you have a great 2 days. Thank you very much.
Transforming Transportation is a co-production between the World Bank, WRI Ross Center for Sustainable Cities, and the development partner is FIA Foundation. If you're not sure who any of those people are, they're the people crying in the corner on the floor because they brought you this giant Super Bowl of a Transforming Transportation conference. Our opening keynote is a conversation with the newest member of the World Bank Group's senior management team, Paschal Donohoe. Paschal, please come up on the stage. Welcome. This is your seat.
Thank you.
This is your, oh, that is your microphone.
Great. Good morning, Femi, and good morning,
morning.
everybody.
You have such a great title. I want you to tell people, because there's so much pressure in that title for performance. Would you share it?
So, well, thank you for reminding me of that. Not of the title, but the need to make it all work, which I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to do. My name is Paschal Donohoe, and I've now been in the World Bank. I'm approaching my 100-day anniversary in a few days' time. My role is Managing Director and Chief Knowledge Officer, and the Chief Knowledge Officer role means how we can ensure that the knowledge that we have within the World Bank Group and the knowledge that we build up with clients and with partners, all of whom are here today, is knowledge that we are organizing better, sharing better to allow it to achieve more. Before I moved over to Washington, D.C. at the end of November, I was in Irish and European politics for 20 years. And some of the golden time of that 20 years is I was Ireland's Minister for Transport for around 2.5 years. And then during that time, I had to make decisions on light rail networks, bus transit systems, and then decisions in relation to Ireland's metro. And then as Minister for Finance, I was responsible for 3 different national development plans and for Ireland, and transport was at the heart of them. So finding money for roads, finding money for buses, finding money for light rail transport systems, and then many billions of euros to build a metro are projects that I have spent a lot of my professional life working on. And that is why, Femi, I am delighted to be here, not only with you, but many transport experts and investors here today, because of my conviction of the vital importance of transport and my experience of the incredibly important role that it plays in economic development and also social connection. And I know you all feel the same because there's so many people present here today.
What is a secret you can tell us about the secret life of transport ministers that only a transport minister or a former transport minister would know and understand?
So there are 3 elements to being a transport minister that I would underline here today. The first one is the role of trade-offs, that even though I was successful in very significantly growing the transport budget for Ireland over 13 years. The demands for transport projects always significantly outweigh the public transport budget that is available. And what I learned from that is that collaboration with the private sector and partnership with the private sector becomes more important and also at times more complex. Mm-hmm. Secondly, if I was reborn as a transport minister, better do is draw the links which everybody has already underlined today, because at that point, relatively early in my political career, I saw transport as an end in itself, which in many ways it is. But what I've learned in the decades since then is that it is an instrument to many other really important goals. And I go back to jobs and economic development. And thirdly, as transport minister, I spent a lot of time thinking about safety on transport, safety on public transport, safety on our roads. And they were issues that really mattered to me day to day. In my later years, I used to spend every morning waking up looking at bond yields. In those few years as transport minister, I used to, first thing every morning, look at the number of accidents and loss of life that happened on our transport system the previous day. And that's something that had quite an effect on me, I have to say. Mm-hmm.
When Ani was speaking just a moment ago, he was surprised at how many people were here, because it's been such a turbulent time. There's so many crises around at the moment. But one of them is an employment crisis. It's a job crisis as well. If we connect transport with jobs, as you just did, how does transport or transportation help with the employment crisis?
So at that point, I just want to underline the commitment of the World Bank Group to this. Our economic portfolio alone, I hope, demonstrates this. We have an economic portfolio of over $40 billion involved in around 180 different projects across the world that at the moment will deliver better transport solutions to around 120 million people. When we deliver all of these projects, that figure will be in excess of 400 million people. 400 million people. So we place a huge value on this as an investor, as a knowledge expert, and as a partner. And then, Femi, to link this back to your very, very question, I see three roles that transport can play from a jobs point of view. Number one, the direct role in job creation through the delivery of infrastructure, the building of infrastructure. Number two, the role that transport can play in enabling job creation by linking people up with jobs in their city, in their community, and in their country. And then number three, the really important role that excellence in transport can play in lifting the level of skills within an economy, in lifting the agility of an economy to mobilize public and private sector capital. And this, for me, builds up the capacities of economies then to deliver jobs. So they're the three roles I would indicate: direct, indirect, and then within indirect, doing transport well will intrinsically do things to an economy that will help it with its ability to grow and deliver jobs elsewhere.
You haven't even hit your 100 days yet, but I want to ask you some of the harder questions, which is, so this sounds extraordinary. It sounds like a great plan, but where and how do you mobilize investments? Well, how does that happen?
What I'm so encouraged by is the degree to which it's already happening. And as I look into this hall here today and those who are tuning in, we have partners in the public sector that we deeply value our partnership with them. And then we have so many investors elsewhere in the public sector and many governments that are here today. And I want to thank and acknowledge them, their officials, their ministers who are here today, and then partners that we have within the private sector. So actually, this is already happening. And if I may at this point, I just want to have recourse to a note that I took earlier on, because the figures in relation to a couple of projects were so remarkable. They really caught my eye, and they underline the value of the projects and the scale of the partnership that we already have underway. A bus rapid transit system in Dakar that has now made 170,000 jobs more accessible to people within that city, meaning that 60% of the job opportunities for young women and men who are looking for jobs are now within a commute of an hour for them on public transport. In Tanzania, the BRT system there has now cut transit times into that city's core from 3 hours to 45 minutes. And these are all huge projects that we are working with in partnership with the governments of those countries and then with the private sector, and look at the benefits. And these are not academic benefits. They're not macroeconomic benefits that exist up there in the cloud. These are real benefits to people in their daily lives, affecting how they feel about themselves, particularly when it's happening through public transport, and then directly linking to your second question to me, the role that this plays then with jobs.
One more thought, and that's taking us into the future. Emerging technology, developing transportation using tech. Where are you on that? Where is the knowledge bank on that? How are you thinking about how tech will help that development happen in transportation?
In 3 ways. As an investor, to play our role in making these projects happen, investing with governments, investing with the private sector. Number 2, as a source of knowledge, and the origins of that knowledge are all who are here, as we learn from what you are doing, as we better organize and curate that learning, to then better come up with solutions that can work in more countries. And from a knowledge point of view, I'd highlight areas in relation to e-mobility. I would highlight areas in relation to learnings that we can have in freight and logistics, where we see really important transport projects as far more than transport projects. And if I look at the work that, for example, we're doing at the moment in relation to Libito, which was already highlighted today, everybody in that project is so clear that seeing that as a transport project is only the beginning of it. It's an economic corridor with so many hugely important indirect economic benefits that we want to harness. And then number 3, then will be the role that we can play in partnerships, the role that we can play in convening assemblies like this and helping us get more from you and helping you get more from us. Because we're all aware of what's happening within our world at the moment. We're all aware of the profound contribution that transport can make with regard to jobs and with regard to climate. It's the secret sauce of what happens within economies. And that's why we're so committed to it. And it's why we thank you for your role in making that happen, to all of our partners outside of the World Bank. And I just want to underline the scale of what we are already doing, of 400 million people having the ability to participate in the investment that we're going to deliver with you in the time ahead. 180 projects, $40 billion. And my real commitment to working with all of you to ensure that through the use of our knowledge, this investment can go even more. And all of you are at the heart of that.
Paschal, thank you for being here.
Femi, and thank you very much. Hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much. You can leave the microphone on. Let me walk you to the side of the stage.
Thank you very much, Femi.
Sustainable transportation walking. Thank you, Paschal. Appreciate you. We have 5 plenaries over the next 2 days. We also have breakout sessions. I think we have like 150 speakers. It is going to be a packed day. There's a knowledge exhibition, plus all of the bilateral conversations, your networking. So we really need to get started. And we will start with plenary number 1, which is transport as a driver of economic growth, which is really the umbrella conversation for the entire week. Let me bring onto the stage your panelists who will be joining us. Pablo Barraciato, is Minister of Infrastructure for the City of Buenos Aires. Mohammed Rahmid Kaimuddin is the Deputy Coordinating Minister for Basic Infrastructure, Coordinating Ministry of Infrastructure, Regional Development for Indonesia. Panel, you are waiting, but please come on stage. We're excited to see you. Welcome. Thank you. If you sit nearest to your name tag, that will work out beautifully. Philippe Lebon is the CEO of Africa Global Logistics, AGL. Philippe, welcome. Tatiana Molcian, Executive Secretary, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Good to see you. And Hector Morales is the Director of the Macquarie Capital, Chairman for Latin America, and its Infrastructure Energy Capital Group, also known as IEC. Thank you, panel. You're very welcome. Good to see you. A couple of things that I should say to you. Feedback, thoughts in the room here in DC. The microphone is there. We'll be using it in the middle of the walkway. We'll be using that a little while. If you're online, TTDC26, hashtag TTDC26 is how you get to us. And if you're using the C Event app, we actually have interpretation in over 60 languages. So all you do is you find this session, you click on this session, and then it offers you multiple languages. Hopefully one of those 60 languages is the one that you are looking for. The language I'm speaking is fluent South London. It is not on the app. Okay, it is so lovely to see you. I'm so excited because this is the opening for the entire TT26. So what I would love to know is, first of all, so we can work out what part of transportation you're from. Pablo, in a sentence, tell our audience what you do.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. I am currently the Minister of Mobility and Infrastructure of the City of Buenos Aires. I'm in charge of the policies and also the investment regarding mobility. And just to start with, we are yet under a new huge upgrade and change and improvement in the mobility system in Buenos Aires. Good to have you.
Philip, welcome.
Thank you.
Philip says French people need more than one sentence to describe them. And I said, because you're so eloquent, you have two. Please share your job description.
Thank you, Femi. You are lucky. I should speak in English, so I will be shorter.
Merci beaucoup. I appreciate that. Yes. I accept the burn.
I'm the CEO of Africa Global Logistics, which is a leading logistic player in Africa. We are investing in infrastructure. We have invested 5 billion for the last 15 years with our 23,000 employees all across Africa in 47 countries. So we develop infrastructure and we move goods and monitor supply chain for our customers, mainly in Africa, but also in some other countries, such as Indonesia.
Good to have you. Welcome. Minister Rahmat, the microphone is on. When you start speaking, everyone will hear you.
Okay. So my job is to coordinate basic infrastructure development in Indonesia. So basically that is roads, water, and sanitation, and basic buildings. And also I led the electrification of road transport team.
It's good to have you. Welcome. And it wasn't easy to get here, was it?
Not easy at all.
No. We'll save that journey for the coffee break. Tatiana, the microphone for everybody is always on. Once you start speaking into it, we'll hear you. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. I was initially thinking that it's also a gesture to bring some gender balance, to this panel, an area we are fighting to bring more women into. But really, I'm happy to be here because UNICE is that international organization or part of the UN system that is responsible for inland transport, so rail, roads, and waterways, inland waterways, and acting. I know that it's easier for some of you to understand better. So it's like ICAO or IMO, for inland transport. So all of the conventions and regulations about transport, about rules on transport, on how to transport dangerous goods, road safety, all of that is UNICE as a custodian. And also when it comes to standards about manufacturing, so helmets, seat belts, anything in your car, when you look at your car, even the seatbelt is done on the UniC platform.
Thank you. You're so welcome. And Hector, so good to have you. Please explain in a sentence what area of transportation you are involved in.
Well, since I'm last, maybe I can do more than a sentence.
We're already negotiating. You
We
can tell you're the finance man.
No, thank you very much. It's a real honor to be here. I want to thank the World Bank and I want to thank WRI, and also to be part of this very distinguished panel. My name is Hector Morales. I work with Macquarie. Macquarie is one of the leading developers, investors, and managers of infrastructure and energy assets. Obviously, transportation is a critical part of that. We are in over 30 markets around the world, and our portfolio exceeds many hundreds of billions of dollars investing. But I think what I would stress is we are very focused in the communities and where we operate. Emerging markets is a growing area of focus, and a very strong believer in the premise that we're talking about today.
Because we're talking about transport as a driver of economic growth, what I ask specifically for every panelist to bring is at least one strong example connecting transport with employment or economic growth. Hector, what is your example that's very compelling?
You know, it's very hard to pick one, but I'm going to be disciplined and follow your instructions. We have done a lot of investments, P3 around the world, but the example that I'm actually going to give ties into a number of things that Paschal mentioned and others. In the Western Hemisphere, there's been a tremendous amount of interest in certain areas, and critical minerals is one of them. Chile is an incredibly important market for that. And we had an opportunity to invest in an access road that BHP had in the world's largest copper mine. This is Minera Escondida. BHP wanted to redirect some of the risk associated with the road, and they were looking for somebody who could come in. It was a brownfield, it's a 140-kilometer road, do the necessary investments and operate that road. But very importantly, they wanted to make sure that the standards that were going to be applied were at international or better. Work health and safety was a critical component. So we participated in a process. Macquarie was selected, and as a result of our investment, which by the way also had a crowding in effect, we were able to bring in a co-investor, a leading Chilean pension fund. But as a result of the investment, the mine has been much more productive. And importantly, Paschal mentioned about looking at reports about injuries and accidents, there was a very significant reduction in the level of injuries and incidents as a result of the plan that we were able to implement, in addition to the investment, obviously, that we made. And it was much more productive for BHP.
Thank you. Minister Ratmat, in Indonesia, you see developing transportation as a direct way of increasing jobs. Take us into that policy, that philosophy, and tell us how that is working right now.
Yeah, I actually want to maybe, I think very similarly to what Paschal was saying earlier today. When I think about transportation system to create jobs and economic growth, I think about three things. The first one is the basic infrastructure itself. You know, when you build the road, you build the ports, the airports, the railroads, that will create jobs in itself. Then on top of that basic infrastructure, then you're building services. You're building an airline company with the ground handling, the bus operators, the rail operators and whatnot. And then in itself, create jobs and also will make travel more effective, more efficient. And beyond that, there is additional things like supporting infrastructure, for example, or ecosystem. Like the car and motorbike manufacturing. And in Indonesia, for example, if you want to electrify, then we have battery ecosystem. When you talk about transport, then you need energy, and then the energy ecosystem. So you talk about building roads, then you talk about cement manufacturing, steel, asphalts, and those are can be connected, can be multiplied, but also you need to be careful that it is actually aligned, because it's quite easy to go elsewhere.
Sure. Ministers, you were speaking. Philip was nodding his head. Pablo was nodding his head. Can you articulate the nod, Philip? What was going on in your mind? You're also thinking like this. So I want you to share those thoughts with us.
You're a good observer. So no, I was listening carefully. And in AGL, we have invested in massive projects, such as Ghana, where we invested $1.5 billion. But I was more thinking on a smaller project, which speaks well to all of us. There is an area in Côte d'Ivoire, which is a country in West Africa, which is a landlocked area where they used to produce mango. And these mango were rotten because they were not able to export. But they are lucky because there is a railroad connected this part of Côte d'Ivoire to the port and to the airport. And what we did, we built a hub, small hub actually, at our mine, with storage and cooling facilities. And these facilities have allowed the farmer to export their mango. Doing that, we have created jobs in our company, but we have also created, I would say, an ecosystem of suppliers, last mile delivery to the farms. And obviously, at the end, we have created induced job, meaning that these farmers have employed people to pick up the mangoes. And now, thanks to this investment, but more than that, thanks to this coordination, you can eat mango in London, you know, the small boxes. So, and I believe we have created, it's a small example, and I believe this example could be scaled up. Then when it goes to scale up and we come back to the introduction, it is more than business, it is social. So it means this kind of example should be scaled up with the support of DFI, of a government to a private company like us to give the best of themselves.
Pablo, you were also nodding as the minister was talking about why transportation is such a great driver for jobs in Indonesia, but you're in Buenos Aires. Yeah. So where is that? Where does it resonate with you?
Yeah, in many ways, but let me try to summarize that in 3 levels. I think Buenos Aires is a 3 million people within a 14 million people metropolitan area, and human capital is the main resource we have. So what we are thinking about is that if you need to give back time to people and freedom. So you need to develop an approach that is systemic. And we thought about that in 3 levels. One of them is to better link the city of Buenos Aires with the metropolitan area. We are 3 million people, but we receive over 2 million people daily. So what we are doing, for example, is that we are rebuilding one of our highways completely. That was the one that was in a poor state, and for the first time we are building public transportation lanes on the center. So we will be decoupling the private transportation from the public transportation. And also what we are doing is that we are integrating that system within the whole system of the highways. And this is in order to reduce up to 25% the time of traveling of people coming to the city, but also to impact in getting the people to choose public transportation instead of coming using cars. The second level is that we believe that Buenos Aires has a huge potential to distribute the possibilities and the opportunities of private sector across the map of the city. So we have very strong activity in the center of the city and in the northern part of the city, but we don't reach that level in the western and southern part of the city. So what we are doing is that we are building the first tram bus in the city. It will be operational in October this year. Just to give you a sense, we did in the last 10 years close to 70 kilometers of BRTs. with a huge impact in the city. Now we are building in only 1 year, 22 kilometers. This is happening right now. We have 30 projects undergoing on the streets right now in order to get it, and it's going to be full electric. So this is also a big, big goal for Buenos Aires. We have started the first 100% bus electric line in Buenos Aires. It's already operating for 7 months. But now we will have the first, and this is large scale, 50,000 people per day, tram bus. And this is being done in a way to increase the polycentric possibilities of the city. So if you see the map, what we are doing is that we do have the subway, but it is radial to the main square of the city. Now we are building north to south links. These are electrics. The first one is going to be the tram bus. And also for the first time, we are calling for a tender in 25 years for a new metro line. So it is already there, it's international, it's going to be open next month. And it is a main metro line for us, linking the main transport hub in the country, which is in the southern part of the city, to our main transport hub in the northern part of the city. And the third level, and I don't want to be too long here, is that we believe Buenos Aires is a global capital. So what we are measuring is how to attract talent. And in order to do that, we need to make it easier. So what we have done is that we have implemented in December 2024, for the first time, multi-payment in the subway, in the metro. And we have 40% of adoption right now. 40% are using that way. And also what we allowed in that sense is that there is now a competition by the private sector in offering discounts. So you can travel 100% subsidized in the subway of Buenos Aires right now if you use certain ways of paying. And this is already happening. And this is also a way to reduce barriers to attract also further human capital, which is our goal in the near term. So I know it's a broad overview, but those 3 levels are very important for us.
Sure. From Buenos Aires, we go to Europe, and Tatiana, one of the things that you're doing is promoting economic integration across Europe. So when I say things like economic development, transportation, jobs, what does that mean in the European context?
If you'll allow me, in this case, I'll speak not only in the European context, because when it comes to transport, we are really going into a global, and I'll give you a few examples to present this. But I would just like to reinforce some of the messages that were mentioned before by the speakers, and I think even in the opening, that really investments in the transport sector is one of the most powerful tools that governments have for economic growth. Connectivity. This brings inclusivity and mobility. It's a human development factor. So this is, without any doubt, one of the biggest instruments that we have for economic growth. Now, from our perspective, I've spoken at the beginning about the harmonization and common standards, or I would say common language. So having this approach of having single, unified, simplified rules, it's what makes this possible, makes the integration possible. I was listening very carefully to this example on the mangoes and the challenges. But one of the challenges, by the way, and it's not only about Europe, Europe is quite integrated as a region, but in Africa, we do have this quite big challenge also in Latin America. Transport corridors, they are still not well integrated among themselves. We had recently Brazil, who had acceded to one of our instruments, TIR Convention. For some of you in this room, you might know this is the transport of international on roads. And what does this kind of instruments, like conventions like the TIR, or one of our newest instrument is the Unified Rail Law. It's a very technical thing, but basically you don't need different consignments, nodes, and system. You have one single globally that would allow not every time you cross a border, what kind of document do you need? So it's a new instrument like the TIR. Like TIR has been around for a long time, but we have new countries from Latin America acceding to it. By using this unified, harmonized system, you gain time, you simplify, also bring predictability, which I think is very important for investors, for the private sector. So you know what are the rules that will be applied. And for example, border crossing becomes much, much more easier also because of this common rules, trusted rules that are being applied. So it's very difficult to single out 1 or 2 examples or 3 examples. But I think overall, if I'm looking at the experience from Europe, from other regions where we work on the transport sector, is that there are many tools there. Not all of them are used equally in all regions. So I would encourage also other regions to look at this potential. We have in the Middle East also quite a few countries who have been using this quite actively. So this is one of the lessons learned for me, that we are not using the full potential of the tools that are available to the countries, to the private sector. So here's where probably we need to work a little bit more in order to make sure that what is ready, available, is being used and is applied, in particular to bring this more regional integration. The potential is huge in certain regions.
Tatiana, in the way that Philippe told us about mangoes rotting, and then transportation changing the mangoes rotting to mangoes being exported, do you have a story that really kind of crystallizes the impact of transportation creating jobs?
Any of the tools that we have, they do lead to creation of jobs. Now, there is a very important aspect, and I think it was mentioned at the beginning. We see now a tendency, a shift with introducing of the digital instruments. I mentioned earlier the tier convention. Now we speak and we implement the e-tier in many of the countries. We start rolling out this, but this needs new skills and new capacities for those who work in this field. But then on jobs creation, you have, if you speak about transport, there are so many sectors, from very technical ones. Mechanical engineers are very much in demand now. Even us at UNICE, we were struggling to recruit. It's not an easy to find jobs. So it's a need. Combination of new skills. So this is what we should be looking at. We are supporting countries to make sure that there is a good match between the needs of the transport sector and the skills on the market or the jobs. There's where we have to focus a lot our attention, because there is a shift. But still some of the basic needs, electricians, technicians, mechanical engineers, are very much in demand.
Philippe, when Tatiana said new skills, you kind of sat up. What are the new skills that you are seeing that are needed in your field?
Well, obviously,
microphone. Thank you.
There are new skills, as Tatiana rightly mentioned, around digitalization, but I mean, it is broader than that. And at AGL, we place empowering our people at the heart of our strategy. And I would say, obviously, the most obvious example is the direct job. So we have technicians. For instance, in Cameroon, we have a beautiful project which has been heavily supported by the World Bank. And most of our engines, the locomotives were US or Canadian locomotives, and the turbo, the traction engine were refurbished elsewhere in Europe. And now we have converted this subcontracting to jobs into Africa by training our people. So it is an ongoing job. But as I said, as a strategy, we want to locate our job as close as possible to the market, as close as possible to the flows. So as I said, we have a broader approach. So we are transferring part of our expertise from Europe to Africa. And it is really wide. So obviously for finance, we have created a hub in Rwanda, actually, for all our compliance screening, which is made into Rwanda by Rwandese with AI. So this is also job, but job for AI with people qualified. We have also created a center of expertise in Morocco, where we train our engineer for all capital projects. And in Abidjan and in Johannesburg, we have 2 expertise centers for IT people, where we monitor all of our software, all our IT system from Africa to Africa. So, you know, most of our competitors, they place their IT center in India, in Vietnam, but we did that in Africa because our flow, our business is into Africa. So obviously there are new jobs, and the beauty of logistics, That's what I wanted to underline with my example about mango, is that you create direct job in the train, in the warehouse. You have really easy job for the last mile. There are truckers, but you also create job for people who want to work onto AI with new tool, and we have a huge AI program, and our young talent are really amazing by what they do. So really, yeah, I mean, logistic is, I believe, a huge driver of job creation into logistics itself, but outside of logistics.
Let's just focus a little bit on infrastructure, Hector, because the company that you represent is the largest infrastructure manager in the world. So if you are looking for infrastructure investments, how do you do that?
Well, a lot of what we've heard are aspects that go into the thinking when we decide which projects to invest in. So Tatiana was talking about predictability. The more predictable, whether it's the regulatory scheme or the laws, investors are going to be attracted to that. If you're looking at a regional project and you have one country that has one set of rules and another country has another set of rules, that just makes it more complicated. And to be quite candid, as an investor and a private investor, we obviously look at many different markets. So we don't have to particularly go to certain markets. We, as a company, want to be looking at emerging markets because we feel it is important to do that. But we also have a responsibility to our shareholders. So it is balancing that. Multilateral institutions, development finance institutions can play a very important role in that regard. But if you have complicated due diligence, if you have barriers to entry, those are going to be factors that'll make it more difficult to go in. We know that our projects are catalytic. We are a firm that's been around for 50 years. We know what a road to connect major markets can be. A great example about the mangoes, if you can bring products to two ports, this is very clear in Brazil that we see every country around the world has infrastructure needs, developed or undeveloped. Number two, and this was something Paschal said, every country does not have the fiscal ability to be able to meet the infrastructure and energy demand. So you need to create an environment that is also going to be conducive to attract that private sector investment. If you can get those things working well, you're going to be able to attract investments. And those are the kinds of things that we look for.
I want to be very candid with you. I'm going to ask if you could be very candid, take off your filter if you're allowed to. So you talked about transportation being incredibly transformative, but you also have responsibilities to your shareholders. What does that mean? Does that mean that there are certain places you will not go to?
I think...
and who fills in that gap?
Well, there are some places that are going to be more attractive to us than others.
Where are the more attractive places?
But let me say this. We have
Hector, are you also a politician?
I once had a diplomatic role.
I'm not surprised.
So last year, the G7 announced the Infrastructure Investment Council. And it's exactly to what you said. How can you attract private sector investment working with public sector players to drive more investment in emerging markets? We are a member of that. And many of the things that we've just mentioned, reducing those barriers is exactly what we're looking at. But but to your point about being candid, to go to a market that is riskier is going to require a different return than if you go to a more predictable market. So how do you get different types of capital to work together in order to address that? Those are some of the things that we're looking at, that blended finance, so that depending on where the returns are coming in, you're matching the type of risk capital to get those types of returns. Those are the things that we're working on.
We're going to be talking more about financing after the coffee break. And if you see Hector creep off the stage in a few minutes' time, it's not because I've scared him off. It's because he has to be somewhere else at 10 a.m. Let me go back to Minister Rahmat and electric mobility. Pablo was humble bragging about the new metro line that's coming to Buenos Aires and the one that's just 7 months old. But for you, electric mobility is just such a rich source of employment and jobs. And what can you tell us about how it plays its role in Indonesia?
Yeah, before I go directly to electric mobility, let me give you a little bit of context for Indonesia energy sector. So Indonesia is a country that basically is very energy rich. We, in 2024, for example, we produce 1.9 times more energy than what we consume. So we export more than what we consume domestically. Yeah. However, we still import 20% of our domestic consumption in terms of energy. Because what we produce is not all what we use. And what we import is actually oil. So Indonesia, of the 20% of energy that we import, 70% is oil, 15% is LPG. So, and that oil, the oil consumption, 90% is for transport. 90% of that 90% is for road transport. Yeah. So that is one context. The second thing is that because Indonesia in the early days, like 20, 30 years ago, used to be OPEC country, no longer, since 2009, we subsidize oil. It impacts livelihood. But as a result, it also creates additional line in our government spending. And could be quite significant. In 2022, during Russia-Ukraine war, it's about 9% of the government budget. Typically now about 4 to 5%. So this is very significant. We are very vulnerable, both in the import side as well as in the spending. But we actually have plenty of electricity feedstock, coal, gas, and plenty of renewable, hydro, geothermal, solar, wind, whatever, we have plenty. So what we see is, what is the best way to be less dependent on oil using our own natural resources? And that answer for now is electrification of road transport. So, and on top of that, we happen to be quite blessed with critical minerals as well. Indonesia is the largest nickel producer in the world, 50%. And we have copper and whatnot, right? So if we shift our demand to electric, we shift our transport system to electric, I think it will save a lot of money from the government that we can spend to do something else. So burning it will create greenhouse gases and air pollution, but now you can spend the money into something more productive. You import less, and we can actually, but then also what we need to ensure is that not only that Indonesians have BEV, battery electric vehicle, but we need to have the industry as well. Because Indonesia has very strong automotive industry, albeit traditional combustion engine. So what we are trying to do is to tie up all this together. So we invite the investors to produce domestically. We get our people, try to convince them to shift to electric vehicle. But of course, it's going to take a long time because the stock, we have about 20 years stock worth of sales on the road today. So will take a long time. However, I would like to report also to our colleagues here, including Ani Dasgupta, so because the team has been helping us in Jakarta. Last year, our market share is 13% EV, battery electric vehicle. I believe it's higher than the United States. And in Jakarta metropolitan, the market share, new market share in 2025 is about 26.5%. I think it's also higher than California, or at least very close. And that is coming from 1% in 2022. So in 3 years, it grows quite significant. So I think that is the angle. We have a very strong motivation to electrify. And I think we now have the ecosystem. We just need to push it and continue.
Very good. I'm going to let Hector ninja-like escape the stage so no one notices that he's left the panel. And also, thank you, Hector Morales. We appreciate you. I'm also going to point out the microphone that is in the aisles for questions that you have, feedback that you have. Please start standing behind that now. My focal lead is Clotilde. Online, what is happening? Nothing. Everyone's happy. Thumbs up. There's a microphone on that table. Do you see it? Do you not want to use it? No. Yes. No. What would you like to do? Hand signs. Okay. Nothing. Everybody's happy. Very good. In the room, please, if you've got questions, thoughts, feedback on what you've heard with that connection between transportation, economic growth, and jobs, please start standing there. As you begin to line up, Tatiana, let me ask you, there's going to be a gap between young people coming into the job market and the number of jobs that are actually being created. There will be more young people than jobs being created. So if we're talking about transportation and sustainability, how does transportation close that gap? How are those jobs sustainable so that we create employment for future transport professionals?
That's a very complex question, and I'm afraid, it would need longer discussions than just, but a thought for you. One other bigger challenge that we have an aging population. And now I'm talking about my region mostly, but it's not only. So we have life expectancy has increased. Someone was encouraging us also to look into the positive, to focus on what we have achieved. So life expectancy has increased a lot, and all over the world. So this brings positive, but also some pressure into the system. So what do we do? When is the retirement? How do we keep those, the aging population also being a workforce? How do we talk a lot now, not only about youth, but intergenerational dialogue. So this is more important. This is what we are trying to look into our programs. We have, for example, a very active program to support knowledge in the transport. It's called the platform Learn ITC, because much of the work that we are doing is very technical. It's standards, regulations, conventions, how to build the roads. By the way, there are also road safety is a very important part of our work. A lot of how to transport dangerous goods on the road, how to build the cars, how to helmets, seatbelts, all of that. So preparing both the young generation, but already those who are in the system to continue to be active and to share this knowledge is very important. So this is one of the priority we are working now. Let's say it's only at the incipient phase, because we started realizing this major, how should I say, the major demographic shift in our region, but also I would say more globally, that we have this aging population with the predictability that we'll have those who are born after 2000 more likely to live up to 100 years at least. So
100 years old.
So that is according to some statistical data that we have. At least 50% of those who are born after 2000 will likely
born after 2000.
Yes, after.
Oh, I can relax.
We can breathe out, but
I'm so dying very soon.
But in general, that's a reality that we have. So you were asking about the new skills, new generations. Think about this: how we ensure this transition. Yes, it's job creation, but it's also the existing, and how do we make sure that this is not a burden on the economy, but on the contrary, something that we can rely upon. And I was listening very carefully to all of the speakers, and in particular about the energy transport nexus, so how to call. We have many working groups and working parties, very technical vehicle regulations, but one which is a more informal one, it's a transport energy, yes, and for the mobility, and they work quite intensively to ensure that there are good regulation in place to allow this the infrastructure energy you might want to put higher quotas to have more EVs on your roads, but if your infrastructure, electricity in particular, is not there, then nothing will happen as fast as it needs to be. So this is why we are focusing really to create those instruments that are needed for the governments to enable this. One very interesting observation on my side, hydrogen-fueled vehicles, the regulation for this was adopted at UNECE back in 2014. Yes, so more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 2 years ago, when they tried to bring, our headquarters in Geneva, they tried to bring from one city in Germany to Geneva a truck, hydrogen fuel truck. That was not easy. So you have the regulation in place, you have the tools, but the market is not there for hydro. I think now a little bit of change, but for 10 years it was a latent, inexistent, at least in Europe. In Asia, yes, in certain countries it's more active. So it's interesting development, and it's always interesting to look into the new technologies.
Can I make a quick comment resonating to one of your points? And I think it's very important. We need to do the basics well, and there is no doubt about that. But I want to only mention that I think that we are looking, or we are chasing a moving target. And what I'm seeing, and we see in Buenos Aires and in many other cities, is that actually demography is changing hugely, not only because of aging population, but also the way younger generations live and the sizes of the families, for example. So if you see birth rate in Buenos Aires has been for the last 30 years below 2, and now it is even lower than that. So, for example, the city of Buenos Aires needed to close one public school last year, and there were 8 private schools closing last year. So what you see now is that we need to take into consideration that, of course, we need to solve all the basic challenges, but the way we are changing our values and we are redefining how it is to live in a city and to choose that city to live. For example, public spaces are central, and in order to do that in a city like Buenos Aires, you need much more electrification, but not only because of energy, but because of silence. Because if you see the level of noise in the cities of Buenos Aires, it is just too high for many people to choose to live there if they can. So it's a complex issue. And we need to come back to the idea of redefining many of the questions and understanding that there are many things that are happening right now at a very high speed, and the goals are changing.
Thank you for your patience. Please walk up to the microphone.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cecilia Briceño Garmendia. I'm the program manager of the African Transport Program. And not all jobs are created equal. I'm not a politician, don't say that, okay? I'm an economist, but not all jobs are created equal. And I really liked the way that you started your presentations in 3 levels. Essentially, infrastructure, services, system, ecosystems. However, most of the discussion focused on physical assets, in physical investment. But what happened is, with the last mile of physical investment that we have, we also unlock things that we didn't have before. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean all these jobs that are the solution and the big nightmare of public policy makers, right? Trucking. You talk about mango investment to unlock the mangoes, the last mile. Railways, fine, but if you have trucking and you have truckers, you created the last mile on the road, and then you created all this trucking organization that, yes, could be very beneficial, but also comes with negatives, right? We have in the cities, we talk about e-mobility, right? But we also need to talk about the gig economy, all these employments that have very low barriers to entry, okay? And I can go on and on. Startups in Africa, right? It's a wonderful opportunity unlocked by transport. And we tend to forget about this. Okay, we tend to forget that these jobs, in few cases, have their own organizations and their own structures, that they might have informality, ergo no access to social services. They might, in few cases, be illegal and linked to migration. And I saw some little smile there in the Indonesian.
So can I,
minister.
if I may, because it's not a keynote Q&A, can I ask you, did you have a question?
And the question is how you deal with all that to make sure that all these jobs really lead to economic growth.
Pablo, you look like you are dying to answer that question.
Maybe.
And then the minister is backing you up immediately.
I just want to say that I said a little bit about that. So we want to attract. It is not only about creating jobs. I fully agree on that. It is about what kind of a city you want to be. So the jobs are going to be created by the private sector. So we need to be very clear that we need to fix transportation to make it easier and quicker and speedier and safe, because we want the private sector investment. And they will have a key voice in what are the main services industries and what are the main jobs of the future. So I just want to bring back to the table the private sector. It's very important for us from the public sector to interact with the private sector and to measure where are the opportunities for them and to try to open those opportunities.
It was really a question about concrete proof that what we're talking about really truly creates jobs. Minister, very briefly.
I think Pablo already mentioned something like that, right?
All right.
Otherwise, I'm going to tell a very long story. So let's.
Okay. All right, Tatiana.
I have a very short answer. I think from the UN side, we have this responsibility to deliver on this aspect that was mentioned. How do we make sure, that there is no illicit things? And for that, this is why we create rules. And we expect countries, when they commit to these rules, we know that they will be respected and enforced. For example, driving time for the truck drivers, or the tachographs that we use. I know that. So we do create the rules to enable to make sure that there is a sustainability, there is responsible, and there is economic, not only a private sector gain to the system. So we do have, countries are doing that.
Why don't we listen to all?
Use your microphone, Minister. Sorry.
Why don't we listen to all the questions? Maybe we can answer, because if everybody.
Sorry, Femi.
Yes.
I let the police speak, but as a private company regarding the job, I mean, we have a corporate social responsibility, and now toward our customer, we want our supply chain to be sustainable, resilient. So I told you that I have a compliance center in Rwanda to check all our subcontractors. We have more than 100 people checking all our subcontractors. And when I said that we created an ecosystem, we don't just launch and announce in the newspaper, please come. We train them to our standards, and especially the truckers. So we check, obviously, their driving license. You see that the boxer, I don't know if you remember the boxer in Nigeria who had an accident. His driver has no driving license. So it comes to the basic, but we go beyond and we train them to our own safety procedures.
All right, so I'm just going to ask for this particular Q&A. We're going to be speedy. If I could ask you for your indulgence, and then as we do go through the day, I'll make sure that we have a longer period of time to chat.
Absolutely.
Welcome. Next question.
My name is Sarah Cassius. I'm with the World Resources Institute. I'll be super brief. I'm curious what examples you've seen that have worked around this opportunity that you've all mentioned around the job transitions and bringing more people into that to diversify the workforce. And on the user side, how you've maybe changed the accessibility and the operations of the transport systems to meet some of the things you talked about, like the aging population. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Joshua. I'm from ITDP. One of the things that came to mind looking at the picture was jobs that would be lost in creating new ones. And I think we've not really touched on that. What are some of the resistance that Pablo and all the others have seen in transforming these things, especially because in the transportation sector in Africa, the young ones or the youths are heavily invested in it. At the beginning, what were some of the challenges you saw? How did you navigate those resistances? So yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. Excellent question. Next question.
Hello, my name is Mumbanglube. I'm an economist with the World Bank. So my question is, how do we ensure that transport investment act as a multiplier? We've talked about job creation, but I did not get anything regarding coordination with other sectors to ensure that the jobs that we are talking about actually materialize. Because what is required is we should move away from thinking of transport investment as a silo investment, but something that is integrated in the economy of any country. Different economies have got different priority sectors, and it's therefore very important that whenever we are doing the transport development, it's actually integrated with that. So I'd like to hear feedback on what has been done from your experience from other countries. How is this being taken into consideration? Thank you.
And I'm going to take this, we're going to be the last one for now. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jamal. I am a transit rider organizer from Buffalo. My question to you kind of falls more about the civil society when it comes to decision making. In Buffalo, the CEJ, we believe that transportation is a right for everyone. And we would want to know, as your organizations, whether it be private, public, semi-public, how do you guys incorporate the civil society into the decision making? Because normally what ends up happening is decisions are made, and then the individuals who live within different subsets within the economy are forced to deal with those impacts without actually having a say on what can be done in the decision. So that will be my question to you, and thank you.
Thank you. We are going to do this very briefly because we're going to have more time to have and unpack conversations as we spend time together today. The idea of people, civil society be involved in those transport decisions that you are making, Pablo, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. I mean, we have in the city of Buenos Aires, I'm talking about the city of Buenos Aires as an example, but a very close relationship with the citizens. So I meet every week at least twice with open meetings with people, and they are very intense, if I can say so. And I think, and I want to also reflect, because we don't have time, that I believe that there is a conundrum or a huge challenge that we are facing, which is, first of all, I said one, which is a moving target. So society is changing, but the infrastructure and the policies, they need time. So what is your target if you need 10 years to achieve it, and it may be changing in 10 years? And the second one that I want to highlight is that democracy, which is the best system that we were able to develop so far, is still under a crisis. So what happened is that if you compare the level of power and sovereignty that the governments used to have 30 years ago, comparing with today, is a lot lower today. So you don't have enough power to do things that were done 50 years ago. This is in the case of Buenos Aires, because you need to build that consensus, which is a positive and necessary requirement. However, how do you share long-term views that in many cases they need knowledge and they need specific tools with the larger population? So I'm sorry not to give a complete answer, but I'm highlighting two main things that I believe are central to our policies and investments. One of them is the moving target, and the second one is the reduced amount of power.
Minister Ratmat, I want to ask you that question about investment in transport as a multiplier. So it goes into other areas, it's not just siloed, but I'm also going to ask you to answer it briefly.
Yeah, so as a coordinating minister, that is my job actually to coordinate. And you're right, basically investment on transport can be, it's very easy to think in silo. So as a coordinating minister, it's our job to get all these different line ministries to sit down and to align. I'll give you one quick example. One of the projects that we do is what we call rural road program. When you give it to the Ministry of Public Works, possibly they just built the road. because their KPI is building how many kilometers of the road. But if we connect it to the need of the regional government and, for example, the Minister of Agriculture, for us, rice, maybe not mango, maybe we need to connect it with this rice producing activity region into the market, for example. And that is not, looks obvious, but it's not if you actually work within your line ministry. So we have to sit down together, basically open up what is the ultimate goal, and then making sure that we can get the highest multiplier effect. Same thing if you build, for example, public transport, but you use diesel or imported fuel. Then if you use electrification, maybe then you can create more multiplier effect. So in the end of the day, it's about creating that forum of communication and exchange goals.
Philip, I really enjoyed that question that was asked about what about the jobs that we're losing, and how do you get the buy-in from communities about maybe AI? You talked about AI, technology coming in, how amazing it is, but also it does change the employment, the way people are employed, the jobs that they do. Can you answer that briefly? Have you already thought about those jobs that are being lost as well as those jobs that are being created?
As President Macron will reply, for sure.
You're going to get me into trouble.
Job empowerment is at the heart of our strategy. And obviously, the job of tomorrow are not the same. But if you talk about AI, it will create new jobs and it will simplify the life of our people. For instance, we do custom declaration and people are typing or spending hours to record the data. And now there will be an AI. We will read the invoice and do the declaration. And our people, they will have to check it. And then the job will more be to advise our customer how to optimize their process. So what will we do with these people? I mean, the reply is not simple, but we will train them. Again, the only reply that I have, we have to grow. But I believe the trade in Africa, you should imagine that the share of the trade of Africa in the world trade is 3%. So you can imagine the margin, the potential of this region. So I would say the only solution is to grow. So obviously it won't be perfect in one time to reply. Maybe I will create job in Ferkesedougou. People will issue carbon emission for sure. But then what we will do, we will create job opportunities and growth, hope for these people. And what we are aiming at Bolloré Africa, at Africa Global Logistics, is to be part of this Africa transformation and to try to convert it in wealth, in prosperity for this continent.
Tatiana, one thought from you, which was about this job transition and giving an example so we can see what this actually means in the context that you originally brought it up. What would your example be?
I think because some of the question was like, do we work in silos like transport as an isolated factor? And when we talk about job transition, it's the same thing. We should look at this not as something that concerns transport only, but the entire sector. One good example that we have in our region, and when I'm saying, UNICE, US, Canada is also a member of UNICE as well, of Central Asia and all of the Europe. We have this program which is called the PEP, Transport, Health, Environment, Pan-European Program. Because, I mean, if you talk about road safety, if you talk about cities, what you were mentioning, it's not only about transport. So you lose somewhere, you gain somewhere. So it's a workforce. And we are, indeed, it's not about aging, it's the fact that we have less people in certain countries. So the demographic trends are not encouraging. So we are looking at reskilling is the way to do things. And this was very well integrated in our strategy and now the new sustainability decade, because sustainability, it's all about this. how you ensure that you have not only economic, but also social and environmental aspects. So this is my example. I think this is well already integrated, but it's not easy. The progress is too fast for us to manage to adjust. It takes time.
Tatiana, Minister Ragmat, Philippe, Pablo, thank you so much. And Hector, who is now already at his next appointment, thank you so much for talking about transport as a driver for economic growth. You passed the test, you've got us started. We appreciate you, your panel. Thank you so much. If you would like to just file off down the stairs very carefully. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of TT. Thank you very much. Philippe, what did you say?
That you are amazing.
He said I'm amazing. As are you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Occasionally I'm hard of hearing. We talk about transportation, about economic growth. We talk about restoration, rebuilding. We talk about resilience. And we want to put it in a context that is so extreme that I know that you will all be leaning in. The next conversation is about insights from the ground. That ground is Ukraine. So first of all, I'm going to connect virtually with Alexei Kuleba, the Deputy Minister for Restoration and the Minister for Communities and Territories Development. Alexei, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. It is so great to have you. Alexei, it's great to have you. Great to see you. Welcome. I'm also going to welcome to this conversation Anna Bierde, Managing Director of Operations World Bank. Anna, we are going to sit. We're just positioning ourselves. Alexei, you are looking amazing in the right position. Anna, if you sit here, your microphone is here. Thank you so much. So good to have you. All right, Alexei, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Anna, you too as well. Where do you want to start this conversation?
Well, thank you so much, Femi. Always good to be with you. And you are, in fact, extraordinary. So I agree with the remark the other person made as he was walking off the stage. Well, first of all, let me welcome everyone to Transforming Transport, which is always an exciting forum for our staff, for our partners, for our clients to come together around. And I do think that this theme, which is the theme really of the World Bank Group at large, is about jobs. And you're talking about it through the lens of transport, which is an incredible contributor to our focus on job creation around the world. So I just wanted to say how delighted I am to be here. Mm-hmm. I'm happy you're convening around this important forum that always plays a big role in our work, but also that you're pivoting it all around jobs. So I want to thank you for that. The second thing is I want to say hi to my friend Alexei. It was great to be with you a few weeks ago in Kyiv. And as always, I want to start by stressing the World Bank Group's steadfast support for Ukraine. My visit coincided with the joint release we did with the Deputy Prime Minister on the damage and needs assessment. This was the 5th damage and needs assessment we have done for Ukraine since the invasion. And I hope we will get a chance to talk about it and also to talk about it in the context of the importance of transport. So just to say, I'm delighted to be with you. I'm delighted to be with Alexei. And just want to, again, stress to Alexei on behalf of the World Bank Group that we are very, very committed to supporting Ukraine in the short and the medium term. Thank you.
Alexei, I did mention that you are in Ukraine, but Anna Bierde explained that because when you talk about transportation from the work that you're doing, it's a whole different level of resilience and what you need to build your transport sector and keep it safe. Can you talk to us about the work that you're doing? Thank you.
Thank you very much, your host. First, let me thank you for inviting me to this important conference, dear Madame Bierde. I would like to use this opportunity to say Thank you to all partners and friends of Ukraine. I would like to thank all governments and, of course, all international organizations, civil society organization, and the private sector who support our country and our people. We value this very much, and we appreciate the partnership and the projects that we are making with the World Bank Group. And dear Anna, thank you for your personal efforts. Moving on the topic of today's event, I would like to say the following. For Ukraine, transport and logistics are not only an economic sector. They are a vital lifeline of all our state. The state which during the full-scale war ensured the mobility of people, the functioning of businesses, as well as national defense and the export of Ukraine products. Since the full-scale invasion started, Ukraine's transport sector has been functioning in wartime condition, and infrastructure has been repeatedly targeted. Airspace remained closed, ports operate under the fire, and yet the system continues to move people, to move goods, humanitarian aid, and of course, export. We have gained unique experience of operating a transport system under wartime conditions. We have reconfigured logistic routes, expanded cooperation with our partners, of course, created new export corridors, and ensured the operation of key transport enterprises. We still have a lot of new challenges. These are the everyday damage to roads, bridges, port facilities, and of course, railway infrastructure. As of the RDNA 5 assessment, which, as Anna said, we just prepared together and presented with World Bank in Kyiv 2 weeks ago, the direct damage to the transport sector amounts to $40.3 billion. And while economic losses reach $58.9 billion, and total recovery and reconstruction needs are estimated at $96.3 billion over the next decade. I want to briefly highlight the situation by subsectors. If it's possible, the railway transport has become the backbone of wartime logistics and the primary target. Only in 2025, Ukraine's railway infrastructure was attacked more than 1,200 times. Around 130,000 railway infrastructure facilities have been damaged or destroyed since the start of full-scale invasion. Despite this, damaged assets are often restored within hours, and services resume the same day. The next one, it's ports and maritime infrastructure, represents the largest source of economic losses since the beginning of full-scale invasion. The enemy has damaged or destroyed 686 port infrastructure facilities and 150 civilian vessels. The total damage to seaports and inland waterway transport infrastructure is $850 million. Aviation, third one, remains fully closed, and at least 19 out of 35 airfields were damaged. The next one is roads, and in road infrastructure remains operational, but more than 26,000 kilometers of roads have been damaged or destroyed. In this context, transport and logistics play a key role, of course, in economics, in Ukraine's economic recovery, and the development of transport infrastructure contributes to the creation of new jobs, the restoration of business activity, and the strengthening of social cohesion. That's why the development of public-private partnership mechanism is becoming one of the key tools for the restoration and modernization of Ukraine's transport infrastructure. Currently, we pay a lot of attention and put the highest priority for preparing and implementing new projects in the maritime sectors, road infrastructure, railway, airports, and water utilities. In this context, we express our gratitude to the World Bank for supporting our efforts, and the ministry plays a big attention also to transparency, and in this case, digitalization is our priority. We have Dream ecosystem that organizes key processes at all stages of public investment management, implementing the highest standards of transparency and accountability. EQ, the electronic border crossing queue, is a digital tool that allows drivers and carriers to manage their own time instead of waiting to cross the border in the physical queue in front of a border crossing point. And we also launch the digital transport waybill system. Also, we have common initiatives with the World Bank. We're implementing a number of important activities. In particular, the Relink project focuses on restoring and improving key logistics links and transport infrastructure. And the Drive project is also aimed at increasing the resilience, safety, and the efficiency of the road network. With the support of World Bank, the study addressing Ukraine's transport labor shortages was also released, and this study showed that Ukraine's roads and urban transport alone may require more than 100,000 additional workers in 5 years, including 50,000 drivers. And of course, the ministry has initiated project aimed at reskilling women and veterans for professions in the transport sector. So there are lots of examples how we deal with challenges and still develop.
Anna, what's fascinating, and Alexei as well, as you're talking to us, you have these facts and figures, they're in your head. You're not reading them, you don't have a notepad, you know what your challenges are, you know how much it's going to cost. Anna, what does the World Bank do in situations like this where a transport system, a country is working, but they're in a conflict situation, they're still trying to keep goods moving, still trying to keep people safe? What is the role of the World Bank in that situation?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I think Alexei has laid out the numbers very well. The numbers are very big. And he distinguished between direct damages as well as the needs, because rebuilding Ukraine and rebuilding the railway and transport system is in and of itself a big program over a decade. But what is our role? Our role is to really be able to help Ukraine quickly repair, because Ukraine needs the railway system, needs the transportation system, needs the modes of transport, the logistics. So our first and foremost role together with other partners is to make sure we are quick on enabling Ukraine to continuously make the repairs they need to make. So that's a huge part. The second one is to plan for the future. And in planning for the future, we need to make sure we are laying the foundations for a prosperous Ukraine. And a prosperous Ukraine will rely on all the innovation, know-how that Ukraine has harnessed over the years, but particularly during wartime, because there's been a lot of creativity on how to be able to very quickly adjust and adapt, but also make sure that we think about the railway system and the transport system more broadly that Ukraine will need in the future. And I'll just mention 3 opportunities I see. First and foremost, Ukraine will be integrated with the rest of the world. So we need to think about its transport and connectivity system as one that's integrated. Of course, the EU is a huge pull, and that means it goes west, but I also see huge opportunities for Ukraine to play when it comes to the Middle East, even the Middle Corridor. So I think of Ukraine as an opportunity in its future to be integrated, and that the transport, logistics, and connectivity system need to be in the center of that. The second thing that I see is that we can take advantage of Ukraine's willingness to reform and need to reform. So what type of railway and transport system is needed in the future? Well, it's one that is financially viable and profitable, because we are going to need to attract private sector. And that means even during this difficult time of war, Ukraine is constantly thinking about its policy and regulatory framework, its cost recovery system, which is so hard to address during wartime, but it's also thinking about new technologies, new ways of doing things. And that's incredibly important. One thing I think, and Alexei referred to it, is that they've had to revise and adjust which kind of outlets they have. So even as ports have come under extreme stress and even been inaccessible, they've been able to divert and use different port structure, which has been so important. And the third thing is, we talk often about transport and connectivity as infrastructure. I would like to see this incredible system as an economic corridor, because I think there's a whole job agenda that connects communities, local government, agriculture, manufacturing, all kinds of economic activity, whereby both railways, ports, connectivity, logistics centers can be enabled by a system that thinks of itself in the light of economic transformation and really beyond transport. And my final point is, what we don't often talk about is trade barriers and trade facilitation. We need to make sure that border crossings continue to be smooth. This is something that Ukraine relies on for speed of exit out of Ukraine, entry into Ukraine. And final note, on a personal note, when you get on that train, on the border between Poland and Ukraine, you're setting yourself in for an amazing ride. The people who work on these trains, their dedication to take you safely across many, many hours of evening and night is just a huge dedication. And I always enter that train, not with trepidation and fear. I actually enter it with pride. I entered it with a sense of purpose. And I feel in very, very good hands with these amazing people, often women, by the way, these women conductors and staff who just take such good care of you. And I really want to thank Ukraine for taking us safely in and out. Every day, Ukraine has visitors coming, businesses, policymakers, politicians, and the railway system has really been able to function for so many purposes, but also on a personal note, this one. Thank you.
Alexei, just to conclude, what is your vision for railways, transportation in the future for Ukraine? What do you hope your transport system will look like in a decade?
Dear host, dear Anna, first of all, I wish I would learn by heart all numbers of Ukraine, of the world, just to stop this war, but it is impossible. So unfortunately, we continue. And during the war, of course, Ukrainian railway, this is much more than just a transport system. The railway has transported more than 100 million passengers, including 4 million evacuated people, and become a key logistics system for the country's economy. In fact, the railway has become a critical artery of Ukraine's economy, of course, and of course, mobility and resilience. In this case, I would highlight 3 key priorities for the railway development. The first is, of course, as Anna said, is integration into the European railway transport system. Integration into the European, I mean, not only the harmonization of the regulatory framework, but also the real integration of the Ukraine railway. This includes both the adaptation of legislation and technical regulation to the standards of the European Union, as well as the implementation of specific infrastructure projects. For example, last year, European track railway project to Uzhgorod was launched and creating a direct rail connection with European Union, and this is better than 1,000 wars. This year, we plan to begin the construction of the next European track line. Such projects, this is the physical integration of Ukraine and European transport system. And of course, this is additional economic multipliers for regions, for our people, for economy. The second is the railways' financial stabilities and mobility. The resilient railways requires stable financial models. That is why the first time in Ukraine, public service obligation mechanism has been introduced for passengers. And under this model, the state or passenger transport services sets socially affordable tariffs for the population and compensators the operator for difference between the established tariffs and the actual cost of transportation. And last but not least is industrial development and job creation. We need to renew our locomotive fleet, and Russian attacks on railway infrastructure only further highlight this necessary. That is why we're developing partnership with international manufacturers of railway equipment. For example, last year, Ukraine provided state guarantees for the purchases of 55 new locomotives from France, and we also see significant potential in localization of production. This will not only modernize the railway system, but also create new jobs and, of course, generate additional economic growth for the country. And the development of railway sector is not only a matter of transport, it is part of Ukraine's economic recovery. So in this case, I think we will move forward. Thank you.
Alexei Kuleba, Anna Bierde, thank you for being part of Transportation Transformation 2026. You can tell it is time for a coffee break. Alexei, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you.